Hi, everyone. I'm sure you've seen a lot on our website about our remote production kits, but I sort of wanted to dive a little deeper into the process of how we came up with the option that we have. There's a million things out there, like fancy kits that are built outside the house and wheeled in that are $30,000 or something for a day use, and then there's a simple thing of just using your own phone or something. And then we've come up with a really great solution. With me is Omar Lopez Jr. Omar Lopez is director of photography. You can learn more about his work at omarlopezjr.com. And he's just so talented. And when we came up with the challenge of how do we accomplish the task of acquiring high definition footage remotely reliably with the unknown of internet. And, even some of these executives are high paid and have probably beautiful homes, may not have the best internet connection, may not know anything about lighting. We don't expect them to. That's not their job. But Omar, this was a real challenge.
It was the challenge. When COVID hit, I wasn't too worried in terms of our production because I had confidence in us. But it really was a roller coaster of vendors and how do we do this? And honestly, almost everyone has their own system. We look around at what other people are doing, but the reality of it is that I really don't think I've seen another production company or spoken to another production company that has as tight of a kit as we do. Once you understand, I always tell people when you're making stuff, once you understand the limitations and you work within those, everything else becomes easier. Once you know this is the top, this is what I can do, you can work around it and you can troubleshoot everything else. And I think, Mike, one thing that very early on that I think you did very well was you're always looking out for the end user. Me as a DP, I'm like, I want this to look the best it can be. So let's ship out, we were talking about like PTZ cameras, which are robotic cameras that you can control remotely. But your client's gonna have to pay some of that shipping costs, et cetera, et cetera. But also, the average person, a C-suite level person is not going to be wanting to set up, a grip 2-ton truck full of gear. It's a lot for one person to be doing 5 other people's jobs. I mean, that's why we pay, DPs and videographers and other people to do all that stuff for us. But
God, I miss those days.
Yeah, because then you could just say, Omar, like, why does it look like that? And I could actually physically do something. Where you can't really speak like that to, the CEO of a company where you're like, hey, you need to just tilt up. You can't just do that all the time. Now it's customer service in addition to them doing all the work. And of course you're taking their time. So I think our kits have really kind of meshed together like the fail safes of production, but the actual use case, like where every end user is having a good time when they're using it.
We went through a lot of trials and tribulations. We bounced, like you said, different vendors back and forth. There's so many components to it. It is simple. but simple is hard to accomplish. And we still will always continue to improve. But, it's funny to think about the journey to get to where we are, which we were talking about the other day, which is just that, there was a one point, Omar, where you had 2 vendors who we had a shoot on Friday and you said to them, you both have the same problem and one of you needs to figure it out before Friday. And I don't care who it is, but whoever it gets it wins. Right. And that was an interesting challenge. I also think that, we're learning a lot from this about the post-COVID world, right? So tell me some of the key takeaways you think for field production when you're able to go back on set again that you're going to be able to take away from this.
For me, I think field production, one, it's going to make me appreciate it more. I definitely won't be complaining about moving things or doing things or working a little bit harder to get a certain result because I'll be on set again.
And Omar never complains. That's for the record.
Yeah. So no, I really do think communication is going to be the biggest thing. I mean, obviously with COVID, everyone's kind of realizing how much, face-to-face time is really important. And I think being on set now, one, you can communicate better because you know exactly what you want, because at least from our team's perspective, we are so much better at like telling someone, hey, we need to move that one thing in the corner, right? Yeah. And before it used to be like, just move it that way. And you could point, you could do everything like that. But through the screen, it's like, okay, so in the bottom left corner of your screen, there's this and this. Can you scooch it 2 inches to your right?
And we're also dealing with the cat, the dog, the cousin next door, you know, who might be in their underwear or something. You know, there are all sorts of things that we've experienced.
Yeah, so we have experienced some crazy shenanigans happening in the background.
It brings us to my final point here. And look, we could talk for hours about this, but you know, I think one of the key takeaways that I've gotten is, and look, we've always had really good demeanor, especially as we deal with clients. It's something that you have to in our world. But I think this really was a challenge for bedside manner, for just being on Zoom and talking softly and slowly and understanding that the end user doesn't know may not know the very basics of some of the foundation of experience and knowledge that we have. So we have to sort of educate them along the way. So I take that away. Would you say the same?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I mean, my very first job was at a pizza place, and I always tell people that I learned all my customer service from there because, you know, sometimes it's something as easy as just explaining that this is why we're doing it this way. Helps so many people. And a lot of production people don't really understand that. They just assume the client doesn't know or care, and then they kind of just say it like, oh, we can't do it this way. But people like knowing why. People like saying, like, hey, we are having this issue. We're hearing this on your mic. This is why we're doing it. We're stopping. Let's restart. Always
have a plan B, have a plan C. And we always tell people, listen, there are going to be problems. We will get the video. Just need you to give us the 2 hours that we've allotted, and we'll let you go at that time. Right?
Yeah, I find that a lot of times when a client might be like, you know, I really wish this video could have been XYZ and really pushed it a little bit further, we come back down to, well, we asked you for 2 hours and you gave us 30 minutes. So I think a lot of it like that is, you know, people are busy. We get it, like, especially, you know, C-suite executives are busy. So things like that. But it really is a test of patience and, of course, bedside manner, as you called it, to convey to other people, like, this is what we need to get done, especially people who, like, a lot of people, I've had a couple of interactions where, you know, you're on a call with like 5 other people who are your peers, and especially sometimes your rivals in the same industry. And if something as simple as I'm having issues with my webcam can make people feel like, you know, inadequate. So you're juggling all these different emotions because it's like giving a presentation in front of everyone and messing up. Like, you can either go on and roll and keep going, or it's going to build up and everyone's going to be looking at you. That's how I feel like people feel like on a Zoom call sometimes. So juggling all those emotions and the technical aspect is something that definitely going into this whole remote production, I was not expecting to have to like dust off those customer service skills as I used to use back in my pizza slinging days.
It's always the first job skills that you forget that you're going to take with you for the rest of your career. Omar, thank you. This is, again, we could talk for hours, I think. And I look back, look, we have much work to do. I'm not happy to be in this moment in the whole world and universe that we're in. But while we are here, I'd like to just take a second and say, we did a freaking great job. Thank you. Thank you to the team that you put together for the remote production. And, you know, it's been a ride, Omar, and I'm glad to have been on it with you. So
yeah, me too. I'm right back at you.